So I've been playing video games for most of my life. I started out at a very young age with the Sega Mega Drive, dedicating a fair amount of time to Sonic, Aladdin and several other games. But I didn't really consider myself to be a gamer. It wasn't the most important thing in my life, and I think I was just too young to care about it any more than a way to spend a few hours every Saturday. And as I grew up and moved on to the PS1 and PS2, that didn't really change. I still wasn't a gamer. However, all of that changed in 2008 when I finally got a PS3, and one of the first games I installed on it was the original Oblivion. And from the start, I was completely hooked. I was a fully dedicated gamer. I can still remember waking up on Christmas morning, seeing the PS3 and a copy of the Oblivion Game of the Year edition sitting there waiting for me. While my parents prepared dinner and my siblings played with whatever they got, I was upstairs, sitting on my bed, watching that iconic title screen and listening to music that still takes me back, not knowing that I was jumping into something I would never be able to come out of. While I'd played RPGs and maybe even a few open worlds before then, I never played one to this scale. The idea of taking a character from a weak nothing to a total badass was completely new to me. The idea of standing in an open living world and just picking a direction to explore was something I never had done before. So when I jumped into Oblivion, I completely lost myself in it. I sank countless hours with dozens of characters in the game, and I loved every second of it. Honestly, I played so much Oblivion that I began associating the PS3's startup theme with Oblivion. I had the TV on mute when I was powering up the PlayStation, or the startup theme would make me want to go off and play Oblivion. So obviously I was incredibly excited and very cautious when I first heard the rumours about a remaster. I had some very high expectations and I had a lot of doubts that they were going to be met. But straight off the bat, honest opinions, I completely love this remaster. For me, it is perfection, and that is the only way I can describe it. Now, I'm definitely saying this from a rose-tinted glasses point of view. If this was my first time with Oblivion or an Elder Scrolls game, would I love the remaster as much? Probably not. But I don't really care, and I think that's kind of the point with this remaster. And I'm fine admitting that as well. I love this game because I love the original so much. Because the original game holds such a special place for me in my gaming life. Virtuos have managed to do an incredible job with the Oblivion remaster. They've managed to recreate that incredible game from nearly 20 years ago, while improving on what was there, but still maintaining that classic Oblivion weirdness. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that the Oblivion remaster is perfect. Actually, I did just say that, but it's perfect to me. I'm not going to say it's a perfect game for everyone, because it's not. And I'll get onto all of that in a little bit. But for the most part, I do think it's a pretty incredible game for everyone. Visually, the game is stunning, a massive step up from the original and from Skyrim. While Bethesda games have improved visually over the years, Starfield, for all of its faults, is a lovely looking game. None of them can hold a candle to Oblivion Remastered. Using Unreal Engine 5 was a very, very smart choice. From the lush forests of the Colobian Highlands to the stunning Golden Coast, whether you're in the southern swamps or the frigid north just bordering Skyrim, everything is gorgeous. The colour, the lighting, the shadows, all of these have been taken to a brand new level. I know some people miss the old colour palette, and I do get that, I kinda do as well. But once I jumped into the world and properly got to sink my teeth into the game, I didn't really care. The Oblivion gates themselves look spectacular. Walking up to the first one at Kvatch had the hairs on my arms standing up. They look properly imposing and otherworldly, just brilliant. Oblivion Remastered looks a lot like the way I think the original does when I would reminisce about it. You know that way you just think of an old game, you let your imagination take it to new visually beautiful heights that it wasn't originally? That's what this remaster looks like for me, how I imagine the original did when I reminisce about it. Also, quickly, the music is just fantastic. The score hits so hard, there's a reason why so many people love it. There's a reason I use it for background music for my Dungeons and Dragons games and for when I'm writing. I still think it's one of the best soundtracks in gaming. From a writing perspective, there's nothing really to say, not much has changed. It's still as good as it was 20 years ago. The main quests and the guilds are still some of the most engaging and interesting of the series and probably all of Bethesda games. Although that's really my own personal opinion, that might vary for other people. The main quest itself is actually probably one of my most favourite in gaming. It's just a classic fantasy adventure and it really works here. The Emperor's been killed, the world has been invaded by demonic creatures, and you have to help save it. Simple and straightforward, but really good. It's not a new story, it's been done a lot both before and after, but here it's executed really, really well. The changes that have also been made here for the remaster were very much needed. The change to how leveling works specifically, I'm very happy with. Not requiring you to focus entirely on a single playstyle after picking your class is a big win. Technically, Bethesda do make RPGs, but it's probably more accurate to say that they make sandbox games that have RPG elements. You just jump into their world, play however you want, and then after a while you just mix it up and try something new. And you were able to do that in Skyrim. You could start off as a stealth archer before going off to be a full magic user, before ending your playthrough as a heavy armoured warrior. And while you could do that in the original Oblivion, it never really worked. The class system being tied into the leveling system made it very hard to do this, so I'm very happy to see that it was removed for the remaster. I do like games that have a class system and that lean heavily into them, but I think they only work in very specific games. It works in Dragon Age and Mass Effect and I really like classes in those games, I just don't think they work in Bethesda games, so I'm happy to see that it's gone from Oblivion. Here in Oblivion I start off as an escaped prisoner, a weak nothing, but then I can go off and be whatever I want and change as I go on. I can be a noble warrior, a deadly assassin, a powerful mage, a sneaky thief, or a holy crusader. I can be everything and anything all in a single playthrough, and I really, really like that. Also, I'm really happy that they didn't go overboard on all the changes, that they didn't look at Skyrim, Fallout and Starfield, picked what worked in those games and then just added them into the remaster. Now, if some of those changes had been added to the remaster, like let's say the perk system or crafting, would they make the game more enjoyable? I don't know, I think that would more depend on the individual player more than anything else. I think it's probably for the best that a lot of changes weren't made, and that Oblivion was kept as original as possible, both with the good and with the bad. Even what would be considered bad in other games, the weirdness and the very familiar jank are still here, but these are things that would be complained about in other games, but in a Bethesda game, they are very lovable. Even though it looks very different and it plays a little bit differently, it still feels very much like a Bethesda game. The over-the-top acting from NPCs commenting on random nonsense, or even shouting out your glorious deeds even though they shouldn't recognise you. This would be very annoying in other games, but here it's quirky, it's charming, it's lovable. Moving on to the combat, it still feels the same, it's just two people whacking each other with wooden sticks until someone falls over. The new animations for certain weapons are really nice, and the improvements to archery were sorely needed. Archery kinda sucked in the original Oblivion, but still the same combat from Oblivion and from Skyrim. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. The Elder Scrolls games aren't loved for their combat, they're loved for the world that's created that you get to explore. And while I would love to see some improvements in combat and gameplay for Elder Scrolls 6, it's not why I play the series, so it doesn't really bother me that much. All of these faults, for lack of a better word, feel very much like part of Oblivion, so they feel natural, even required in the remaster. That being said, however, there are some faults with Oblivion Remastered that were present in the original, and I feel like they should have been addressed. While they may not have been an issue back then, as I've said, they do stand out now more in a post-Skyrim world. For me, two of the biggest issues are the scaling of enemies and of loot after you level up. It feels like it's still all over the place, like it's a little bit too fast. Leveling up is very easy and very quick in the remaster, which means it doesn't take long to see high tier enemies. By the time my character's level had reached the early 20s, I still had over half of the main quest to do, I'd barely touched the guilds, and I hadn't even looked at any of the DLC. But I was already fighting high tier enemies like the highest tier Daedra possible. And while I find these high tier enemies a lot easier to fight now than I did when I played the original, it's still a little bit jarring to see them appear this early on in a playthrough. And similar to the level scaling of enemies is the level scaling of gear. It can be quite difficult to find a full set of armor or weapons in a specific style. I'm currently playing as a light armored sneaky assassin, and it took me ages to work up to getting a full set of elven armor, which I didn't even need in the end. By the time I only needed one or two more items to complete the set, specifically the gauntlets and the helmet, glass armor was already starting to appear. Now, this might not seem like a big deal for a lot of people, and it really isn't, but for someone who likes to have all of their gear match, it definitely is. Finally, on a similar point but not as big of an issue, you have low tier enemies running around in high tier gear. It can be a little irritating and immersion breaking to be walking through a forest and be jumped by a bandit wearing full Daedric armor. It's one of the things I really loved about Skyrim, that all of the bandits were in low tier gear. It just made them feel more like bandits, you know, more believable in the world. Now, these three aren't the biggest problems. Honestly, I really do look past them. I don't really notice them all that much, but in a post-Skyrim world where these issues were addressed, they are definitely a lot more noticeable. And if I didn't mention them, then this video would just be me praising the remaster rather than being fully honest. This also brings us to the point that it's very easy to compare Oblivion Remastered to Skyrim and the more recent Bethesda games. And while I absolutely love Oblivion Remastered, and it might be my favourite game of the year so far, it still is a 20-year-old game. And there have been a lot of improvements to the series, Bethesda games and gaming in general that are lacking here. Gaming has come a long way since 2006, and a lot of improvements have been made to Bethesda games. Perks, crafting, the Radiant quest system, bigger worlds, building your own base and much better companions have all been added to Bethesda games, and they're not here. But as I've said, none of this really matters to me because of what Oblivion Remastered represents. It's just a lot more noticeable. The original Oblivion is such an important part of gaming history both for gamers and developers. It came out when we were entering what would be considered the modern era of gaming, and it set a standard for what would be expected from the industry as a whole for years to come, both for good and for bad. I do have to wonder how many developers looked to introducing RPG elements or an open world system to their games following the release of the original Oblivion, and I wonder how many fans expected it. I remember first playing Dragon Age Origins a few years later and being a little bit disappointed that at the start it wasn't fully like Oblivion, that I couldn't explore the entire world freely or just loot every single person for everything they had on them. Now, I am really glad it wasn't. I love Dragon Age Origins as it is, it's also one of my favourite games of all time, but I wonder if that was the mindset for a lot of people back then. In the end, I love Oblivion because Oblivion is just so lovable. It wants you to like it so much that it tries to be a little bit of everything all at the same time, and honestly, I think that's great. I really love that you're not some prophesized hero coming to save the world in its darkest hour. That's your best friend's job. You're just some guy who is in the wrong place at the right time, and now you're trying to help save the world because you want to. Or it would be more accurate to say because you've created a story of why your character wants to save the world. Bethesda wants its players to create their own reason for wanting to save the world, and that makes it very easy to immerse yourself into the world of Oblivion. There is no person before or person after, you're just you in that moment. But in the end, everything here, the great writing and world building, the mixed acting and combat, and all of that buggy jank combined together to make this remaster still perfectly Oblivion. It is a totally chaotic and inconsistent mess. And that's brilliant. In one moment it is incredibly serious, the world is ending, cities are being razed to the ground, and it expects you to take everything going on incredibly seriously. And then at another moment you are standing at a dinner party in a castle in your underwear, surrounded by a bunch of people in their underwear. You can start your day fighting a giant four-armed demonic god in the ruins of a city, before jumping into a painting to fight painted trolls in the search of a magic paintbrush, before journeying to a weird, strange land full of giant mushrooms with the eventual goal of becoming the god of madness. And you can do all of that in a single afternoon. And I wouldn't change anything about it, because that's why I love it. Oblivion makes Cyrodiil feel real, more so than a lot of other games, more so than a lot of Bethesda games. Yeah, the world may be ending, but something is killing this person's pet rats, and that's what's important to them. Until their city starts to burn, that's what's most important to them, so at this moment, that's what's most important to me. Everything I've talked about here has combined together to make you care about the world that you're living in, made you care about its people and their problems. I hated beating the main quest of Oblivion, not because it was bad, not because it was too difficult, because I didn't want the world to change. I didn't want Martin to leave or for Cloud Ruler Temple and the world to become a little bit emptier. When I finish the main quests for Skyrim or Fallout, I can easily keep on playing, completing side quests, doing DLC and just exploring the world. But when I finish the main quest for Oblivion, it feels like I should stop, that the story's been told and that it's time to say goodbye. All because Bethesda made me care. As I said at the start, the original Oblivion made me into a gamer, and it did that because it showed me a world outside of my own that I could truly care about, because I wanted to care about it. And this remaster is still the same. I still really care about that world. It did what a remaster should. It's not a quick cash grab, but a reintroduction to an important part of my life, and hopefully it's the same for a lot of other people, and hopefully it's an introduction for many more people. I'm so jealous of all the new players who are jumping into Oblivion for the first time with this remaster. Those people who are going to be creating these new heroes of Kvatch and creating their own stories in Cyrodiil. I really hope all of you love it, because I'm so jealous that I'm not getting to do this again for the first time. And if the Oblivion Remaster is your 100th time in the world of Cyrodiil, I hope that, like with me, this remaster has been able to recapture all of that nostalgic love for you that I've been able to find. Thanks for watching. Hey guys, I hope you liked that video, and if you did, do give it a like and a comment because it'd be greatly appreciated. You can check out similar videos as well on the channel, and of course you can subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on all content going forward, and check me out on TikTok and on Medium as well. And I'll see you next time.